Hey, this is Jamey from Stonemeyer Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanisms in a Reiner Knizia game called Art Robbery. Here's my hand of cards from a middle of my first session of Art Robbery. We played it with 4 players here. This is a game where over the course of 4 rounds, you are trying to acquire the most money slash points. You count the numbers on your tokens, and if you have the most, you win. With one exception, and this one exception is one of my 2 favorite mechanisms in this game, and that is a number of the little tokens in the game. The photo doesn't quite show it here, but these tokens mostly have numbers on them. They also, a few of them, have little dots on them, and those little dots are alibis. And so at the end of the game, you first look at the player with the fewest little dots on the tokens that they've collected throughout the game. And if they have the fewest alibis of any other player, they lose. They don't have an alibi for this art robbery that you were all committing together. And so that player, or those players, if they're tied for the same number of lowest alibi icons, they are out of the game. And then you look at the total point slash money, whatever the numbers represent, and that is the winner of the game. So that's one of the things I like. I like games that have this type of pressure where there's certain things that are really appealing in the game, like the higher numbers. But if you completely ignore a certain aspect of the game, like the alibis in this game thematically, you don't have a chance at winning. I like that a lot. The other thing I think is really clever about this game is that even though you are playing over the course of 4 rounds, you keep your hand throughout all of those rounds. So the reason the rounds are relevant is that you have these little tokens. There are 4 different piles of tokens designated for each round. And so each round you put out that round's pile of tokens in the middle of the table. And over the course of the round, you're playing cards to gain the tokens that either match the tokens in the middle of the table, or if I play this 5 and there is no 5 in the middle of the table, I'm going to steal a 5 token from another player instead. And so the tokens are limited. They determine how long that round lasts. And at the end of the round, you have your tokens off to the side, and you keep those tokens. They're your tokens for the rest of the game. So that element of the game is a bit transient, but the hand is not. Even though you are playing a card each turn, when the round ends, you don't get a whole fresh new hand of cards. Instead, at the end of every turn, you are refilling your hand. You are getting a card back in your hand. So you always have 5 cards in hand. And this I thought was a really clever decision in the game. That even though there is an element of the game that is completely refreshed every round, you also have this ongoing hand management element that isn't completely refreshed, giving you a lot more agency over the game as opposed to if you got a completely new hand at the beginning of each round. Now, the small catch to this that we found is that it's sometimes tough to remember. In fact, it's oddly tough to remember to refill your hand because turns are so quick. You're playing a card, and then once you play a card, you're kind of focused on the token that you're gaining, and you've already forgotten that you should be regaining a card. So that was oddly difficult to remember, but at the same time, I really like how this persistent element of the game contributed to the level of agency that I had over my hand and over my entire game. Because even though I say that I play this 5 this round, I know that I know that I'm losing that 5 for the next round, but I might, instead of trying to hold on to that 5 card, knowing that my hand isn't actually going to change. While this may not sound all that novel, I think it really is. For this style of game where you have a hand of cards, in most games like this, you are getting a completely new hand of cards every round. And so I really like this ongoing hand management aspect of Art Robbery. Those are my 2 favorite mechanisms, the hand management and the alibi system in the game. I'd love to hear what you think if you've played Art Robbery, if you have a favorite mechanism, or if either of these mechanisms remind you of a mechanism in another game. Let me know about that in the comments as well. Thanks.